I think the best thing about doing this job is when somebody improves way beyond their expectations and they hit the ball better than they ever thought possible. And in this video, I'm going to share with you an aspect of the swing that certainly has made an enormous difference to my game. And then we'll cut to a live lesson and we'll chart the progress of a guy who over 2 or 3 sessions absolutely transformed his ball striking. He went from being really inconsistent, I mean directionally and strike wise, and everything all of a sudden tightened up, and he's just hitting these laser beams time and time again. And if you've not done so already, then please consider subscribing, and I will also include a lesson plan to accompany this this video, and then you can take it to the range and you can work on some really core fundamentals that will hopefully make the same transformational difference to your game. So what am I referring to then? Well, it's your pivot, your body turn. So when I started the game, you were taught just to turn the body, and that's how I turn the body. Turn to me means this kind of motion. Now you can see as I'm doing that, the whole kind of body is rotating. I'm rotating from my ankles, knees, hips, and I have this kind of big spinny motion where I also would get my pelvis sort of backing up in that direction, and the knees look like a broken deck chair. And then as you sort of progress through better and better coaching, and as was the trend in the 90s, the advice I was given was, well, no, Noel, your legs are moving too much. You need to hold your legs. And the big thing in the 90s was the X factor. Hold your legs, turn your chest. So you can imagine then I am, in my 20-somethings, practicing away, really trying to hold my legs and get some stability in the way that Tiger used to. This whole idea of the X factor, no hip turn, big turn of the shoulders. But I didn't have that level of flexibility. So in my swing, like many others, that just meant not much turn at all. And of course, we'd put things between our legs. We'd try and sort of hold beach balls and whatnot kind of between our legs. And ultimately, of course, I just never had that level of flexibility. So then over the years, with the emergence of biomechanics, better information became available, and now we realise that actually there is a better way of doing things, and the whole idea of the X factor got kind of disproven with long drive champions, etc. So this is what ultimately needs to happen. Some golfers have that level of mobility where they can really rotate their hip sockets, and their legs, they would turn in their hips, and their legs would look really very still. And I would suggest that's, I don't know, a very, very few kind of unicorn tour professionals. Most golfers, including most tour professionals, wouldn't be so much turning from the hips as displacing the sort of knees and hip joints. And that is a more front to back kind of motion. So when I say displacing, if you imagine I'm sort of walking and then I'm going forwards and backwards this way. So as the right hip moves backwards, the left hip moves forwards, and the lawnmower drill, you've probably all seen the lawnmower drill, connects with this pattern. The idea that you would pull the lawnmower, start a chord back, and that right hip then pulls back behind you and upwards. And that, of course, is more about displacement of the hips as opposed to hip turn or hip turn within the sockets and holding the leg straight. And that's what we're after. We are after a movement where the right knee and hip move backwards. You can see here, if I move across and use the sort of vertical of the tree there behind me, you can see that as I turn, I don't want my pelvis backing out in that direction. My right hip moves over my right shoe, and it's actually moving upwards. It's extending upwards. So as I turn back, the right hip is moving up and it's moving back, and the left knee is moving forwards. And then the downswing is the opposite of that. So now the right knee flexes and pushes forwards in this direction, and we get this lovely contralateral pattern, opposite movements, in the sort of left and right legs. So right leg needs to move up, it extends, which means we need to sort of push up. Really, we're pushing the femur, the thigh bone, up into the hip socket, like so, and that extends this leg upwards, and you can see then we start to get these sort of side bends that people talk about on other channels of the rib cage. But that is all built around that right leg trail leg pushing back and upwards, and I've kind of almost got 45 degrees of rib cage rotation for free. Now, while we're doing that, it's key that the chest isn't allowed to sort of point upwards, but as Sean Foley talked about, there is a stretch phase where, as the right hip is moving back and upwards, the left arm is stretched across you. And that is our backswing, which is very different to just trying to turn and getting all this kind of messed up in this way. Of course, what happens in the right arm is also very important. That needs to fold, and that will also support your rib cage rotating. But perhaps we'll cover that in another video. So this was the journey that Robin here was on. So you'll see as we started, Robin has this move where he is, his legs are a bit of a mess, and he's got this massive, what looks like a massive turn in his shoulders, which really isn't because he's really amazingly flexible. It's because the lower half is a bit of a mess. The knees are kind of buckling underneath him, the left knee gives way, and he gets this kind of motion. And in terms of stability, it's an absolute disaster. There's also far too much going on for him to coordinate. There's too many degrees of freedom for his coordination system to kind of consistently put together. There's just too much going on. So we needed to learn how to pivot better. So you'll see him going through various drills here. You can see here he's doing this drill where we're using the hands to feel what it's like to move forwards and backwards and up and down with the knees and hips. So the hands are going forwards and back, and they're also going up and down in unison, or guiding, if you like, the hips. And that is a very different thing to just trying to turn like so. Now I can feel as I do that. In fact, it'd be a really good idea, if you have the space, just to give that a go while you're watching the video. So you just put your palms down, imagine your palms are guiding your hips. So the right hand moves back and upwards as the right hip moves back and upwards, and then vice versa. And you can feel there's a real sense of up and down and forwards and backwards. Now as I move into the right hip in the backswing, that left knee I can still feel is supporting the motion. I'm not letting it sort of drop and fall in this way, which many golfers do in an aid to get a big turn. As the right hip moves back and up, the left knee moves forwards, but I've got some weight on it. I'm like sort of 60-40 in terms of weight motion. And you can see here, this is the motion that Robin has been practicing. And then, I think, a couple of weeks later, we take it to the range, and he's practicing now from that feel. He's learned real structure through this left side. So as he's making those practice swings, he's feeling what it is to stay structured here. And as a result, he hasn't got that massive turn of the rib cage. I mean, Robin's been playing not even 2 years, and I've got to tell you, the striking was out of this world. Really, really exciting to see. So forwards and backwards, up and down, getting that right hip to kind of line up almost with your ankle, as opposed to sort of working away. Meanwhile, that left arm sort of stretches across you. So if you've struggled with your body turn, I mean, it's intuitive to think that we just don't have mobility. Oh, I need to do more stretching, and absolutely always do stretching. I mean, really important to have the mobility. But it may well be that you're just like me, just not doing it right and didn't have the right information. So I'll put the practice plan in the notes below, and we'll do some drills and see if we can get more out of the mobility you have. And if you want to know more about that idea of hip displacement as opposed to hip turn, then legendary coach Pete Cowan always kind of prioritizes up and down, that vertical motion, as opposed to rotation. And he uses an amazingly powerful metaphor of the spiral staircase. And I'll link that in a video down below. But before I see you next time, keep practicing, good luck, and play well.